Courage and honor, cousin.
Into the fires of battle, unto the anvil of war.
Hello, and welcome to Warhammer 40k's Grim History from Beyond. I'm Zeckthar, and today we'll be discussing the Dark Angel's Grandmaster of the Ravenwing, Sammael. Now, Sammael is the current and 348th Grandmaster of the Ravenwing, and the leader of the Hunt, the captain of the elite 2nd Company of the Dark Angel's chapter of Space Marines, who leads the chapter's hunt for the fallen angels. As a senior member of the Dark Angel's inner circle, he fully understands the danger that the fallen present to the chapter and its honor. The leader of the hunt and his warriors are at the forefront of the physical search for the traitors that turn from Lionel Johnson, and the current incumbent, Sammael, epitomizes the gumption and enthusiasm required for the role. Sammael is bold to the point of being reckless, a trait required in order to head a mobile company whose success depends upon speed and hard-hitting surprise. Despite his well-noted audacity, Sammael's reign at the head of the company has already been unusually long and successful. Although masterful at orchestrating distracting maneuvers and feints, if given a chance, Sammael much prefers to take matters into his own hands. Even as a youngster, Sammael was bent on earning respect and promotion to the Dark Angel's battle companies as quickly as possible. He was always the first to volunteer for additional duties, and spent every moment when he was not in combat or in vigil honing his skills in the battle halls of the Rock. The Adeptus Astartes implants and training had boosted an already considerable natural talent and made him a fearsome bladesman. Sammael frequently placed high in the ritualistic duels and tournaments that occurred amongst the Dark Angels, building a camaraderie rivalry with Grandmaster Belial, the current Grandmaster of the Deathwing, whom he has never been able to best. His insights on the battlefield were as incisive as his sword blows, garnering him the rank of sergeant in only his 5th standard year as a full battle brother. Always adhering to orders from the company master and paying due respect to the chain of command, Sammael nevertheless had an instinct for positioning his squad at the forefront of any assault or counterattack. Wherever an assault squad was needed to punch through a foe's weak point or respond to an enemy breakthrough, Sammael and his warriors were always the unit closest to hand for the mission. Such gifts do not go unnoticed, and the previous master of the Ravenwing, Gideon, personally selected Sammael for observation. Gideon conducted the rites of preparation himself, and was pleased to find that Sammael was capable of handling the secrets of the hunt, as well as he handled his chainsword. Being the youngest Dark Angel ever to be inducted into the Ravenwing, Sammael was treated as something of a talisman by his squadron brothers. His natural flair for attack and mobile defense took him to position of sergeant in swift years once again, and Sammael's easy camaraderie ensured that there were none that served with him who begrudged his youth. On Scarsus, Valindor IV, Nofestus, and Pelagian, against the orc horde of Grisgor the Underfiend, and the renegade warbands of the Scarborough cluster, Sammael's exploits continued to gain him renown amongst his battle brothers. On Capua Betis, when Sammael was still a sergeant in the Ravenwing, the future Grandmaster first heard the name Cypher. Capua Betis had been subject to repeated assaults by Eldar pirates, and these had provided cover for Cypher and his band to destabilize the rule of the Imperial commander. Grandmaster Gideon regretted deeply that the Dark Angels had been so close to catching their arch-foe. The Fallen had still been in system when the Ravenwing arrived alongside warriors from the 3rd Company and the Deathwing, though the Dark Angels did not know at the time that their elusive quarry was still nearby. By the time the Dark Angels drove off the Eldar attacks, Cypher had slipped away once more. Sammael took several prisoners from pro-Xenos cults and overheard their discussions of Lord Cypher, learning that this mysterious individual had been the mastermind behind much of the upheaval. Now, faced with Sammael's questioning, Grandmaster Gideon chose to take Sammael into his confidence, inducting him unofficially into the inner circle of the chapter, an induction that was formally ratified when they returned to the Rock. When Sammael and his squadron were instrumental in the capture of the fallen known as Acanis, during the Lustenstock uprising, Grandmaster Gideon again singled out the warrior for especial praise and elevated him to the ranks of the Black Knights. When word reached the Tower of Angels of a chaos-tainted uprising in the Capua system, the Ravenwing were dispatched to ascertain whether there was any Fallen involvement. The second company arrived at Capua and performed a lightning drop onto the storm-shrouded world of Capua 7. The initial attack met little resistance, mostly rebels and chaos cultists, poorly equipped to take on the elite of the Dark Angels. However, this early success was soon reversed by the intervention of traitor Marines from the Black Legion and Word-Bearers. Though their numbers were small, their presence bolstered the resolve of the Chaos Worshippers, and Grandmaster Gideon was forced to withdraw or risk his formation getting bogged down in a static battle of attrition with the Chaos Space Marines, an engagement for which the foe was much better suited. Over the course of the following days, the Ravenwing conducted several scouting forays and reconnaissance in force to establish the extent of the foes facing them, and to draw out and destroy such enemy elements as could be lured from their defensive lines. With this intelligence in hand, Gideon and his veterans identified the city of Vespengard as integral to the traitors' plans and composed a plan of attack that would pull apart the defenders and see them destroyed piecemeal. The next phase of the campaign started well, as encircling Ravenwing forces baited squads of Word-Bearers from their bastions and bunkers, opening up a gap in the approaches to Vespengard. Grandmaster Gideon led an attack on the Chaos-held settlement with the bulk of his force, driving the bikers and landspeeders through the break in the enemy's cordon. But then, disaster struck upon reaching the inner reaches of Vespengard. The commander of the uprising had kept hidden his greatest weapon, a Reaver-class Titan, corrupted by the promises of the Chaos Gods. The traitorous Ire dominated the open spaces and wide thoroughfares of the city's heart, its turbo lasers and Gatling blasters driving back the Ravenwing advance. While they recoiled from this blow, the Dark Angels found that the errant Word-Bearers had returned to their positions in a pre-planned move to ensnare the Ravenwing. They were surrounded. Gideon was convinced that the enemy was led by one of the Fallen, for who else could have known the Dark Angels' way of war so well as to organize such an effective ambush? Rather than order a breakout from the city, he commanded his warriors to attack the traitorous Ire. If the Chaos Titan could be removed from the battle, the city would again belong to the Dark Angels, and the traitors could be hunted down in the wilds. The Grandmaster led the attack with Sammael at his right hand, punching through the cultists that swarmed from the buildings to bar the Ravenwing's path and slow them down enough for the Titan to engage. As they reached one of the central squares, the Ravenwing were caught by a timely fusillade from the traitor's Ire's Gatling cannon. Massive shells slammed into the road and sent debris crashing down from the surrounding buildings. Gideon and his squad were caught on the edge of one such blast. Space Marines and assault bikes were flung through the air by the immense detonation. Flaming debris rained down onto the Ferrocrete road, and Sammael was momentarily knocked unconscious amongst the dead and wounded. When he recovered his senses, Sammael pushed himself from the rubble to find his bike was smashed beyond use, and the company was in disarray. Enemies were closing from the rear, and the traitorous Ire had their surviving Ravenwing pinned back in alleys and side roads where the cultists would be able to ambush them with ease. Gideon lay crushed beneath a slab of masonry, his armor cracked in a dozen places, bones broken and organs pulverized. Yet the Grandmaster still clung to life, as Sammael found him amongst the devastation. Sammael asked the mortally wounded Grandmaster whether or not they should press the attack or withdraw. Gideon responded that he could not say, and with his last strength and breath he pulled the raven sword free of its scabbard, and told Sammael the company was now his to lead. With his final effort, the Grandmaster Gideon, a veteran of 6 Terran centuries of war, died. Sammael wasted no time in taking command of the demoralized Ravenwing. Securing himself a functioning steed from amidst the wreckage, he commanded the land speeders to conduct harrying raids on the enemy Titan, while the attack bikes regrouped under a shadowy veil of the Dark Shroud. The situation was grim. Communication from the fleet announced that traitor vessels were closing on the Ravenwing's battle barge, Implacable Justice, and no orbital support could be expected. The company had nearly lost a third of its warriors and machines. Sammael did not expend any time worrying about reorganization. He left that to his veterans and sergeants to form such squadrons as were needed. Wishing to see Gideon's plan to fruition, Sammael led a fresh attack on the traitorous Ire, using the land speeders and Dark Shroud to feign a rear attack, while a second force was sent to the east, forming a diversion on the war engine's auger returns. Their energy signatures masked by burning buildings, sparking power lines and venting reactors, a handful of the Ravenwing's most adept riders followed Sammael through the ruins created by the Titan's weapons. Suddenly, they burst from the cover as the traitorous Aya turned to confront the feint from the east. Bike-mounted weapons, even the plasma talons of the Black Knights, were little use against the void shields of the Titan. Instead, Sammael put his faith in speed, tearing across the square at the head of his warriors to strike from within the energy defenses of the war machine. Cultists in the surrounding buildings opened fire on the charging Ravenwing, but they dodged and jinked with reckless abandon, and all survived to reach the Titan. Barely slowed, each sped past the machine's lumbering feet in quick succession, hurling all the melt-a-bomb and charges the force possessed as they raced between the Titan's legs. Even before they were clear, Sammael detonated the bombs, shearing away the lower right leg of the traitorous Ire. As the behemoth collapsed, its reactor exploded, leveling buildings still standing on the square and showering flame, metal, and ceramite onto the swiftly retreating Ravenwing. Now, following the loss of their Titan, the Chaos forces struggled to regroup. Sammael kept the Ravenwing mobile, always attacking and harassing, fighting continuously for 7 weeks until reinforcements from the Deathwing and the Dark Angel's 4th and 5th companies arrived to purge Capua 7 of the Chaos taint once and for all. Much to Sammael's disappointment, no member of the Fawn was ever located, but the destruction of the traitorous Ire is still remembered as one of the Ravenwing's greatest achievements. On return to the Rock, Sammael's promotion was endorsed by the other masters of the chapter, and he has led the second company for more than a century. Well, on that note, we're out of time for today. Now, if you enjoy our little show, could you please be so kind as to push that subscribe, like, or follow button? And if you wish to help us expand our work on 40k lore, by all means, support us by joining our membership program on our YouTube channel, Tales of Asheraka. Most importantly, though, have a great day. And,
Until next time, this is Zeckthar, signing off.